I've now moved from rural Lincolnshire to rural Worcestershire, to the home of my very good friend Ian Rathbone, who will be introducing further aspects of painting. Now, he'll probably rubbish what I've done before because I'm a bit of a fudger, but Ian is a professional painter, and what he will have to tell you, I suggest you really listen to. So over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much. Right, I've been a professional painter for just on 12 years now, and I dabbled for, say, 15 years prior to that. And during that 12 years, my techniques have changed an awful lot. Since I wrote the supplement for BRM, I've moved on since then even. And so it's a learning curve all the way. But for someone who's not done it before, there are three things you need to have: practice, patience, and perseverance. I bought these two Hornby Double O coaches, ancient tinplate things, £2 and £4. And on this one I practiced masking, and this is a pretend intercity buffet car. This one I painted up to represent post-war Great Western livery. It is a wonderful material to practice on. You can strip it and paint it as often as you like. It's tinplate, you're not going to harm it. And you can really practice getting straight lines, masking for the two colours. If you get it wrong, take it off and start again. So practice all the time. Patience. When it goes wrong, you need patience in extreme, because painting is quite a slow process. Right, I'm approaching this from the point of view that you're actually going to build a kit and then paint it. And most kits these days are etched brass, and brass itself is a very difficult material to get paint to stick to. So we'll come to that later on the preparation side. Now, we've opened the box, had a look at the contents, and decided the way we're going to build it, hopefully read the instructions. And we need to think beyond that to what we're going to do to make painting easier. Here I have part image of a Castle class engine. You can see here the splashes, which were lined in both BR days and in Great Western days. The cab side here, which had fully lined in Great Western days, and a panel here in BR days. While it's a flat etch in this state, you can actually trace around these with a pencil onto paper, and with dividers you can calculate the radius of this, and you can make a template, so that when you have built the model and come to line it out, you place your template against the edge of the splasher and you can draw the line round. The cab front in Great Western days is lined. Well, here we have part of the cab front. So then again we can make templates from that, if that's the way you choose to do it. There are 4 or 5 ways of lining curves, and I shall go through them all later on. Also, you've got to think of the thorny question of whether to put boiler bands on the locomotive or not. One of my biggest complaints is boiler bands that are too thick. In most models they're too thick. If you are lining the boiler bands, the thickness of the transfer to make the lining is quite sufficient to give you a notion that there's a boiler band there. So I would say either file them off if it's a white metal engine, or not put them on if it's a brass engine. Also, if you're building a coach, can you leave the roof off and fix it separately? Because the coach roof is always a different colour from the body. And likewise, can you fix the underframe so you can take it away and spray it separately? There are all these considerations to take into account at this stage, when you just open the box, and it'll make life so much easier later on. The next area of knowledge you should have is knowledge of the prototype. Steam engines lasted many, many years. Many were rebuilt out of recognition sometimes during their lifetime. And you may want to paint it in a certain way, in a certain livery. You need to make sure that the model you're building actually builds a locomotive that you can paint in that livery. You need to have a good knowledge of the livery you're painting it in. For example, the Southern Railway M7 in BR days. If you look at the splasher lining on this one, see the straight line at the bottom there. This one, it kinks over the coupling rod splasher. During BR days, there were 8 different ways of lining this area. there were two different ways of lining each of these panels. There were two forms of the engine, long wheelbase and short wheelbase. Some had a sandbox there, some not. So you need a photograph of the engine on the date that you intend to model to get it right. The same goes for coaches, and so many different locomotives all changed, and the liveries, especially under BR, were very, very variable.